Maya Ellison opened the door just as the woman was winding up for another knock. It was early, just past 8, and Maya had barely finished her second coffee. The sun hadn't reached the porch yet, but the woman standing there radiated heat, beige pantsuit, clipboard in hand, and a look like she'd already won the conversation. "You've ignored 2 notices," she said, without so much as a greeting. Maya furrowed her brow. "I don't know what you're talking about." The woman's mouth thinned. "Your property has been cited. You're non-compliant." "Non-compliant with what?" "Hanging planters, that bench, visible clutter," the woman said, pointing past Maya's shoulder. "You're violating the HOA's residential harmony clause." Maya stepped halfway out. "Who are you?" "Dolores Vance. I'm the president of the Greenwood Bluff Homeowners Association." "I'm not in Greenwood Bluff." Dolores raised her clipboard as if it were a badge. "Your home sits within the Phase 2 view corridor. Compliance is expected of all visually adjacent properties." Maya looked at her own porch. The bench was handmade by her uncle, carved from cedar. The planters were tidy: mint, basil, lavender, nothing messy, nothing overgrown. Her garbage bins were tucked behind the shed. Her yard was clean. "I'm not part of the HOA," Maya repeated, "and this house predates Greenwood Bluff by 30 years. I'm on a separate parcel." "That's been challenged," Dolores said flatly. "You're bordering community space. Appearance matters." Maya crossed her arms. "Then mail me something. Don't show up uninvited and start barking orders." Dolores's nostrils flared. "Your tone is inappropriate." "Then leave my porch." Without another word, Dolores spun on one heel, gripping her clipboard like a weapon. As she turned, she reached for the door and slammed it shut behind her with force. A sharp crack followed. The top hinge of the door splintered clean through the wood, one of the glass panels trembled, and a small piece of trim popped free, landing at Maya's feet. Maya stood still. Dolores didn't stop walking. It took a full minute before Maya closed the door again, gently pressing it into its frame, careful not to add pressure to the damage. The latch barely caught. She stared at the hinge, then at the jagged line where the wood had split. The frame sagged slightly now. The door leaned inward like a kicked-in bookshelf. Her heartbeat finally slowed. By mid-morning, Maya had called 3 contractors. Only one answered: Rhea Nichols, a carpenter who did residential restoration in the next town over. She agreed to come by around 6. After lunch, Maya searched her records and pulled up the property plat. Her parcel, #142B, sat squarely outside HOA boundaries. No mention of easements, no annexations. The neighborhood map on the HOA's own website didn't even list her house. So what gave Dolores the idea that she could impose rules here? When Rhea arrived that evening, she walked the door frame slowly, running her fingers along the cracked paint and warped wood. "This wasn't weather," she said. "That was slammed, clean and hard." She didn't apologize, just left. Rhea raised an eyebrow. "You know her?" "Never met her before today." Rhea crouched, checking the lower hinge. "I'll quote you for repairs, new frame, rehanging, maybe the glass if it shifts. Wanted in writing that it wasn't accidental." "Yes please." Rhea stood, brushing sawdust off her knees. "Then I'll say it plainly. This was done by force, and if someone from your HOA caused it, they're liable." Maya looked toward the window. "I'm not in their HOA. That's what makes it worse." She poured Rhea a glass of lemonade before she left. The estimate was fair, under $700, but the anger still sat like a stone in her chest. What gave someone the right to break her property and walk off like it meant nothing? She wasn't the loud type. She didn't go looking for conflict. But this time, conflict had arrived anyway, and it had a name: Dolores Vance. The thing about Maya Ellison's house was that it had never needed to be perfect. She bought it 4 years ago with a tired loan, a little bit of freelance money, and a lot of luck. Nestled at the far end of Alder Lane, it was one of 5 properties that predated Greenwood Bluff by decades. Her parcel was zoned separately. Her taxes went to a different district. Her roof didn't match anyone's guidelines, and that was exactly why she loved it. The porch was her favorite place. She drank coffee there every morning. She sketched for hours some days, mostly plants, old signs, or catalog cover mock-ups. It was where she taught herself to breathe after her divorce. It was where she told her niece, Talia, that life didn't need to fit neatly to be beautiful. The bench her uncle built still sat to the left of the door, solid cedar with small initials carved into the back. "Me not Maya's," but his. Michael Ellison, a carpenter, part-time poet, and the only man she knew who could whistle in tune with a mockingbird. So when the door cracked, and Dolores walked off like it meant nothing, Maya didn't just feel angry, she felt invaded. Later that evening, she called her neighbor, Benji Kim, to tell him what happened. They weren't close, but they shared a fence line, and he had lived there for over 20 years. She came up my steps once, Benji said after she explained. 3 years ago, told me my shed was visually disruptive. I told her she could go disrupt somewhere else. Maya laughed, but it was short. She broke my door, Benji, cracked it down the frame. Benji's tone sharpened. That's not just pushy, that's aggression. She said I'd ignored notices. I never received any. She plays that game, he said. Drops papers at the edge of your driveway, then counts the days. It's intimidation wrapped in paper. On Saturday, Maya saw Jada and Eric Lyle, the young couple who lived 2 doors down, struggling with a flat stroller tire. She crossed the street, offered a pump, and got more than she expected in return. She fined us for mulch, Jada said while Eric tightened the tire valve. Said it wasn't the approved shade of. I didn't know mulch had rules, neither did we. She came during nap time, snapped a picture, and emailed a $75 citation. Maya's face tightened. Did you pay it? We fought it, but it's cheaper to just comply. That's how she gets you. Back at home, Maya examined her front door again. Ria's estimate had arrived by email, $695, with a note that read, damage consistent with forced slam, frame split under torque. Maya filed it, then opened her camera roll, and flipped through recent photos. She didn't find anything of the moment itself, she hadn't recorded it. But then she remembered something else. Talia, her niece, had been recording a short video on the porch the morning Dolores showed up. She was making a school project, a mini documentary about neighborhood tension, inspired by a class debate on overregulation. Maya texted her, did your camera catch anything from Thursday morning, when that woman came? Talia replied 10 minutes later, OMG yes, I was filming B-roll from inside the screen, didn't stop rolling. Want me to send it? Maya didn't answer right away. She took a deep breath, and looked at the broken hinge again. Yes, send it, all of it. When the video arrived, Maya played it once in silence. It showed Dolores clearly. Face, voice, movements. It showed her yelling, dismissing, arguing about plants. Then the moment, the grab, the pull, the slam heard clearly on camera, followed by the crack. It was all there. No voiceover, no bias, just the truth, as plain as daylight. And in that moment, Maya realized 2 things. First, she wasn't imagining the aggression. Second, she was no longer just defending a bench and a door. She was defending her space. Sunday morning started quiet, but the peace didn't last long. Maya opened her mailbox, and pulled out an envelope, with no return address, sealed with a gold HOA emblem sticker. Inside was a letter printed on thick paper, the kind reserved for certificates and invitations. But this wasn't a celebration. To resident of Parcel 142B, it has come to our attention that multiple structural and aesthetic violations exist on your property. Due to your proximity to Greenwood Bluff's visual boundary, it is our duty to uphold the community's appearance standard. The letter listed 7 violations, ranging from unapproved porch furniture to non-compliant plant type. Maya read it twice, then 3 times. She knew the terms were made up. Her yard was clean, her plants were native, and she wasn't a member of the HOA. Still they kept pushing. She folded the letter, and added it to the growing folder on her kitchen counter, right beside Ria's estimate, and a copy of her deed. She called Benji.
I got a letter too, he said. Same format. Different violations. They're trying to swarm us. Have you ever seen anything like this before? Not this bad. But she's getting bolder. Probably because nobody's ever pushed back. Maya paused. What happens if someone does? There was a silence on the line. She digs in, or digs you out. That afternoon, Maya walked the block. On Jada and Eric's front porch sat a fresh notice taped to their screen door. This one had a bold red header, Compliance Enforcement Warning. Second stage. Maya knocked. Jada answered with her infant on her hip, visibly exhausted. They said we installed an unapproved swing set. It's a used frame, from my cousin. Maya scanned the yard. The swing was modest, tucked beside the garage, barely visible from the street.
They also said we'll be reported to county code enforcement if we don't remove it in 72 hours. Maya's eyes narrowed. That's not a warning. That's a threat. Jada nodded, eyes tired. We just want to be left alone. On her way back, Maya passed Benji's backyard. She slowed when she saw the gate. It was padlocked. Not from the inside, but from the outside, with a thick black lock looped through both handles. She called his name. A moment later, Benji opened his back door and stepped onto the porch in slippers. You locked out? She asked. He squinted at the gate. I didn't do that. Do you even own a padlock like that? No, he said slowly. And no one else should be back there. They called the sheriff's non-emergency line. A deputy came out within the hour. He documented the gate, took a photo, and removed the lock with bolt cutters. There was no note, no explanation. Just a heavy object that didn't belong. Benji turned to Maya as the deputy left. They're trying to make us nervous. Maya looked him in the eye. Then maybe it's time to make them uncomfortable too. Back inside, Maya opened her laptop and created a new document. She titled it, Greenwood Bluff Border Disputes. Evidence log. She added photos of the cracked door, the padlocked gate, the letters and the notices. She cataloged the timestamps from Talia's video. She included Raya's professional estimate, and she copied every violation listed on Jada and Eric's warning. When she was finished, she sent it to 3 places. Her lawyer, the county ombudsman, and Cara Moreno, Talia's old journalism mentor, now working for a local station, along with a short note, there's something happening here. I think it's bigger than a door. That night, Maya stood on her porch again, hands tucked in her hoodie, watching the lights flicker on across the street. She didn't want to be the center of a fight, but if Greenwood Bluff thought they could scare her into silence, they'd chosen the wrong doorstep. She looked at the repaired hinge and smiled. I'm not moving, she said out loud. They are. On Monday morning, Maya Ellison drove to the county records office with a tote bag full of questions. She tried the online portal first, but the public search system kept freezing. If she wanted answers, she'd need to dig for them the old-fashioned way. Inside the government building, it smelled like coffee dust and recycled air. The reception clerk pointed her toward parcel records and gave her a laminated guide on how to request archived zoning changes. Maya spent the next 4 hours, sorting through drawer after drawer of dated file folders. She searched for anything tied to Greenwood Bluff property lines, annexation requests, boundary updates. What she found was subtle but telling. In 2015, the HOA submitted a visual corridor overlay request. It outlined plans to extend landscaping restrictions to lots bordering their eastern fence line. While the request was denied by the zoning board, notes in the margin hinted at unofficial compliance encouragement practices. Then came a 2017 request for visibility review privileges, which essentially tried to grant HOA agents permission to assess non-member homes for aesthetic alignment. That one was also denied. But in both files, one name appeared repeatedly. Dolores Vance. Signed. Initialed. Annotated in bold blue ink. Maya photographed every page. Back home, she laid out the papers across her dining room table. She highlighted phrases, circled addresses, compared old zoning maps to new Google images. The pattern became clear. Every year since 2015, Greenwood Bluff had attempted to stretch its influence outward, not legally, but practically. Through social pressure, through paperwork, through intimidation. And in most cases, it worked. Homeowners gave in, they repainted, they re-landscaped. Some even moved out. Until now. Later that evening, Maya walked next door to show Benji what she'd found. They call it visual corridor enforcement, she said, sliding the papers across his patio table. Benji leaned over the pages, scanning the underlines and arrows. This isn't governance. This is manipulation. They apply pressure until people give up. They've been doing it for years. Benji nodded. And Dolores is the architect of it all. At 9:14 p.m., Maya received an email from Cara Moreno, the local journalist Talia had introduced her to. Hi Maya, just reviewed the footage you sent. I don't usually take HOA stories unless there's a larger pattern. But what you've documented is concerning. I'd like to come by this week, Wednesday afternoon work. Maya replied immediately. Yes. I'll have everything ready. Then she attached the scans of zoning records. The next morning, Maya walked her property line again. This time she brought her phone, taking slow, deliberate video of her porch, her coop, her bench, and every inch of landscaping. Halfway through, she noticed something new. Another sign, this one tucked into her neighbor's hedge. Observation area, property aesthetics under review. It wasn't a county-issued sign, it wasn't even dated. Just a laminated square, with a Greenwood Bluff logo and fine print stating, part of community-driven visual harmony pilot program. She knocked on her neighbor's door, no answer. So she snapped a photo of the sign, and added it to her folder. They weren't slowing down, they were expanding. When she got home, she received a call from Ria, the contractor, who had fixed her door. I was thinking about our situation, Ria said. And I realized something. What's that? I've done 4 jobs this year in Greenwood Bluff. 3 were on homes technically outside the HOA. All involved weird structural complaints. One homeowner said they felt forced to sell. Maya paused. Forced how? 2 of them mentioned getting letters every week. One found nails scattered across her driveway. Thought it was kids, until it happened 4 times. Maya's chest tightened. Do you remember the addresses? I'll dig through my records. Please do. This might be bigger than I thought. By nightfall, Maya had added 5 more entries to her evidence log. And for the first time since Dolores slammed that door, she didn't feel backed into a corner. She felt like she'd just discovered the blueprint to a quiet takeover, and was holding it up to the light. The anonymous email arrived Tuesday night at 11:03 p.m. The subject line read, Greenwood Bluff board member. You're right, there's more. Maya almost didn't open it. She thought it might be spam, or worse, a trap. But when she clicked the message, there was no spam link, no attachments, just a short paragraph, and 2 Google Drive links. I've served on the board for the past 2 years. I thought I was helping the neighborhood, but Dolores has gone too far. You're not the only one she's tried to push out. One of these files is the survey draft they planned to fake. The other is from the landscaping contractor, the one she uses for pressure jobs. I saved copies before she could delete them. Good luck. There was no signature. No name. But the files were real. The first document was labeled Phase 5 Beautification Overlay. Draft for internal use only. It included marked up maps of several non-HOA parcels, with handwritten comments like candidate for acquisition, inconsistent visual line, and push for soft compliance. Maya read each line carefully. Her own property, Parcel 142B, was circled in orange. Next to it, the phrase aggressively non-compliant. Likely resistance. Apply pressure until sale opportunity. She took a slow, steady breath, and opened the second file. It was a payment summary from a company called Evergreen Alignment Services, showing line items for exterior influence adjustment, and unrequested cleanups, billed to the HOA under discretionary funds. 4 different addresses were listed, none of them in Greenwood Bluff jurisdiction. Maya's house was one of them. By the time morning came, she had printed both files and added them to a folder labeled simply Recipients. That afternoon, Cara Moreno arrived. She wore dark jeans, carried a camera bag, and introduced herself, like she was there to talk about a pie contest, not a growing HOA scandal. You have everything ready? She asked. I have more than I thought I would, Maya replied. They sat on the porch. The sun was hot, but Maya didn't care. She walked Cara through every step, from the cracked door to the HOA's fake visual boundary maps, from the padlocked gate to the threats against Jada and Eric. Then she showed her the video. Cara watched without saying a word. She didn't even blink when Dolores slammed the door and the frame cracked on camera. She watched it twice. I've seen HOA overreach before, Cara said, but this is coordinated. It's institutional bullying. Maya nodded. I've got the paper trail now too. She handed Cara the anonymous files. Cara read them slowly. Her eyebrows rose at apply pressure until sale opportunity. Then she looked at Maya. You ready to go public? Maya didn't hesitate. I'm past ready. By 5 p.m., Cara had filmed her stand-up footage, shot B-roll of the porch and property, and promised to air the story on Friday. I can't say how big it'll get, she said, but this will get attention. As Cara packed up her gear, Maya offered her one last thing. a printout of the list of other homeowners affected by soft compliance pressure. I don't know how many more people will come forward, Maya said, but I know this won't stop unless we shine a floodlight on it. Kara took the list with both hands. You're the first person I've met who made a door slam matter this much. That evening, Maya updated her evidence log, uploaded backups to 2 cloud accounts, and left a sealed envelope with Rhea, labeled in case anything happens. She wasn't paranoid, she was prepared. For the first time in weeks, she slept through the night, and in the morning, she stood on her porch, coffee in hand, and watched as 2 HOA volunteers pulled weeds on the opposite lawn. One of them glanced her way. She didn't wave, she didn't smile, she simply stood her ground, because now, she wasn't afraid. Now she had the truth, and a file full of names that didn't belong on any map. By Thursday morning, word had spread, not through gossip, not through flyers, but through something quieter, side conversations, cautious texts, and the kind of glances that pass between people who've seen something and aren't sure if they're allowed to speak up. The HOA had ruled this street with silence. Now that silence was cracking. It started with a knock on Maya's door. This time, it wasn't Dolores, it was Mrs. Laney, the widow 2 houses down. She brought lemon bars and a manila folder. I don't want to be on the news, she said, but you should have these. Inside were 4 letters, all signed by the HOA over a 2-year span. Each one referenced her non-regulation shutters, which had been white since her husband built them in 1991. They kept saying it devalued adjacent homes. I finally painted them gray. Took 2 days and a new brush set. Maya scanned the last letter, which ended with a bold line. Continued refusal may affect community standing. They never said what that meant, Mrs. Laney whispered, but I didn't want to find out. Later that day, Eric and Jada Lyle stopped by with their baby in a stroller and a list. These are the other people we've spoken to, Eric said, handing Maya a piece of paper. Some got warnings, others got fines, a few moved. Maya read the names, 12 total, 9 of them on streets outside HOA boundaries. They just wore us down, Jada said. One tiny thing after another, until you stop resisting. Maya looked at the list again. No more, she said. We've got momentum now. That night, Kara's story aired. It opened with B-roll of Maya's porch, the swing of the cracked door, and the creak of a frame that still didn't hang right. Then came the video. Dolores slamming the door, the wood splitting. Cut to Kara's narration. This wasn't just a broken door, it was the moment a line was crossed. Next came interviews, Benji describing the padlock on his gate, Jada explaining the swing set citation, and Maya walking through her evidence folder like a prosecutor laying out a case. It ended with a pull quote from the HOA handbook, read by Kara in voiceover. Respect for property boundaries and homeowner autonomy shall be observed, even in advisory zones. And then, silence. For a full 2 seconds, the screen held on Maya's face, tired, resolute, standing beside a door that still bore the mark of resistance. The next morning, Maya's inbox overflowed. Some were neighbors thanking her, others were strangers sharing similar stories from other towns. One was from a woman in Florida who said, I didn't know we were allowed to fight back, but not every message was friendly. A single line email came through just after noon. Enjoy your spotlight, while it lasts. We don't forget. No name, no reply address. Maya screenshot it, and sent it to Kara and the county's residential dispute office. She wasn't playing defense anymore. Later that afternoon, Maya walked with Benji to the corner lot where 2 families had recently moved out. A moving van was parked nearby, but it wasn't leaving, it was arriving. A man stood outside, clipboard in hand, while a woman pulled weeds in the front garden. Maya introduced herself, offered iced tea, and mentioned that the HOA had no jurisdiction over their house. The man looked confused. We were told there were rules here, not for this property, she said, and not from them. She handed him a printout of the actual zoning map, just in case. He looked it over, then smiled. Good to know. Thanks for the welcome. That evening, a new sign appeared on Maya's porch, hand-painted by Talia. It read, This house is not afraid. And beneath it, in smaller script, Respect is not a regulation. Maya sat on the porch as the sun dipped low, the sky turning that soft blue-gray of late summer evenings. More neighbors waved as they passed. Some lingered longer, some left notes on her porch, or tucked thank you cards beneath her flower pots. She didn't ask them to, they just came. Because once someone stands up, it becomes harder to stay seated. By Saturday morning, Maya knew retaliation was coming. She just didn't expect it to look so official. An envelope slid under her door. This one had her full name typed across the front, and the Greenwood Bluff HOA seal embossed in silver on the back. Inside was a 4-page document titled, Notice of Community Interference and Disturbance of Operations. According to the document, Maya's recent campaign of misinformation had irreparably harmed the harmony and integrity of Greenwood Bluff. It claimed her actions constituted public defamation, obstruction of community cohesion, unauthorized sharing of proprietary documents. At the bottom was a signature, Dolores Vance, President. Maya read the letter twice, then placed it gently into her folder labeled Retaliation. She didn't panic, she didn't even sigh. Instead, she made coffee, sat on the porch, and watched her neighbor Eric repaint his fence. Across the street, Benji adjusted a new padlock, this time on the inside of his gate. She wasn't the only one preparing. By noon, a printed bulletin was taped to every mailbox on Alder Lane and the surrounding cul-de-sacs. Titled, Preserving Our Peace, it listed a series of reminders from the HOA. All residents are encouraged to report unauthorized media appearances, unapproved signage, and outdoor displays may result in corrective measures. Cooperative behavior ensures the neighborhood remains safe and unified. No name was on the bulletin, but the tone made it clear who wrote it. Maya received a call from Claire Nichols, the contractor's cousin who worked part-time with local code enforcement. You're officially on the radar, Claire said. Dolores filed a neighborhood disruption claim. Is that even real? Sorta, but the claim has no weight unless you're part of the HOA, which you're not. Maya leaned back in her chair. Then what's the point? Claire paused. To scare you, to exhaust you, to hope you give up before the hearing. That evening, as dusk settled, Maya heard a soft rustling outside. She turned off her porch light, and stepped quietly toward the window. At the edge of her front yard stood a figure, hooded, gloved, and holding a can of spray paint. She watched the person step forward, and begin spraying something on her white mailbox. Maya didn't hesitate. She grabbed her phone, hit record, and flipped the porch light back on. The figure froze, stared into the light, then turned and ran. But not before the camera caught a clear glimpse of their shoes and a partial profile. Enough for Maya to recognize the curve of the shoulder, the stiff posture. It was Dolores. The paint had barely dried when officers arrived. The footage was clean, clear, dated and time-stamped. The officers took her statement, photographed the mailbox, and confirmed a formal report would be filed under misdemeanor vandalism. Maya didn't gloat. She didn't post about it online. She simply added the report number to her folder and forwarded the footage to Kara and the county dispute board. Then she bought a new mailbox, not white, red. On Sunday morning, Dolores appeared at the community park, clipboard in hand. But this time, residents didn't greet her. They looked past her. Some nodded at Maya as they walked by. Some whispered. And when Dolores began a public statement about ongoing neighborhood unrest, 2 people stood up and left. No one clapped, not even the board. That afternoon, Maya received a call from Trevor Bland, the municipal code officer she'd emailed weeks ago. We've reviewed the footage and received the incident report, Trevor said. You're well within your rights to escalate. I don't want revenge, Maya replied. I want it to stop. We've also reviewed the zoning records you sent. You were right. Greenwood Bluff has attempted 3 overreach actions in 6 years. None were approved. 2 were quietly withdrawn after questions arose. Maya stayed quiet. Trevor continued. The Oversight Committee is calling a hearing. Wednesday morning. You'll be invited. Maya hung up the phone, then stood at her porch railing as the wind stirred the fig tree near her walkway. She could feel something shifting, something real. The retaliation hadn't broken her, it had backfired. And now, for the first time, the storm was finally headed toward them. Wednesday morning dawned cloudless and still, the kind of still that precedes change. Maya arrived at the Travis County Civic Hall 20 minutes early, dressed in jeans, a charcoal blazer, and her uncle's old watch. She carried 3 folders, one marked Evidence, another labeled Correspondence, and the third simply titled Neighbors. Kara met her on the front steps. They're expecting a quiet hearing, she said. We're about to give them the opposite. Inside, the air was cooler.
Rows of plastic chairs faced a panel of 5 county oversight officers. At the front sat Trevor Bland, who greeted Maya with a nod. He looked sharp, professional, already flipping through her submitted documents. To the left sat Dolores Vance, wearing a crisp cream suit and frown lines deep enough to cut granite. Her attorney, a man in an ill-fitting navy suit, whispered something in her ear. Maya didn't look at them. She took her seat, laid her folders on the table, and waited for her name to be called. The hearing opened with procedure. Trevor summarized the issue: disputed jurisdiction, claims of harassment, and one recorded act of vandalism under active investigation. Then Maya stood. She didn't raise her voice, she didn't pace, she simply laid out the timeline. Dolores's uninvited visit, the slammed door and resulting damage, the video evidence from her niece, the escalating pattern of mailed threats and citations, the padlocked gate, the anonymous files from a board member, the retaliation bulletin, and finally, the spray paint on her mailbox. Every claim was backed with a photo, a copy, or a timestamp. The room was silent when she finished. Trevor looked toward Dolores. "You may respond, Miss Vance." Her attorney stood instead. The HOA was merely enforcing neighborhood standards. While the property is not officially under Greenwood Bluff, the community has long expected adjacent homes to visually align. Trevor raised a hand. "Let me stop you there. Expectation is not regulation. Do you have a formal agreement signed by the homeowner?" "No," the attorney admitted. "But the HOA has operated under historical precedent." "That's not how governance works," one board member said. "Precedent isn't permission." Then Kara requested to speak. The panel allowed it. She stepped forward, press badge visible, and presented a short slideshow, clips from her news segment, the silent reaction from the community, and a new email thread forwarded anonymously, showing internal HOA plans to reclassify bordering homes without notice. Trevor asked where the thread had originated. Kara didn't say, but everyone in the room looked toward Dolores, who now sat stone-faced, lips pressed into a white line. After an hour of discussion, the oversight board called for recess. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, the panel returned. Trevor stood to deliver their ruling. The HOA has overstepped its authority. Enforcement actions against non-member properties are nullified. All complaints and warnings sent to Miss Ellison and her neighbors will be rescinded and removed from all county records. He paused. Additionally, a review of the HOA's actions will be opened. Any use of discretionary funds for non-approved surveillance or retaliatory maintenance will be investigated. And should the current board be found to have committed zoning fraud, civil penalties will follow. Dolores didn't speak. She simply stood and walked out. No apology, no words, just heels on tile. Outside the sun was higher now, hot against Maya's shoulders. She and Kara stood quietly on the front steps. "You did it," Kara said. Maya shook her head. "We did it." Behind them, 3 other neighbors exited the building. Jada, Benji and Mrs. Laney. They didn't say much either. They just gathered on the steps, sunlight warming their faces, a shared sense of weight lifting between them. That evening, Maya returned home to find a letter on her porch. This one was handwritten. "Miss Ellison, on behalf of those of us who never had the nerve to push back, thank you. You reminded us we're more than mailboxes and fences. We're people." A grateful neighbor, she tucked it into the neighbors folder and smiled. The fallout began less than 48 hours after the hearing. It started small, a few posts on a local Facebook group questioning HOA dues and fines. Then came a scanned copy of Maya's evidence log, uploaded anonymously to a community message board titled, "Stop the Bluff." Within a day, comments exploded. "They fined me for a blue flower pot. We were told to remove a porch swing because it was too casual. I asked for board meeting minutes and got a warning letter instead." For the first time, people were comparing notes, and the results were damning. Maya didn't join the thread. She didn't have to. The community had picked up the torch. Her mailbox, now freshly painted and standing tall, became a symbol of resistance. People slowed down when they walked past. Some waved. Others left little notes beneath her flower pots.
One said, "I painted my shutters this week." Lavender, "Thank you for giving me the courage." Meanwhile, Dolores tried to maintain her grip. At the next board meeting, she arrived 15 minutes early and placed printed agendas at every chair. But only 2 board members showed up. Both silent, both clearly uneasy. The meeting adjourned after 10 minutes. The next day, one of them, Samuel Rhodes, the HOA treasurer, posted a formal resignation online. His letter was brief. "I can no longer support the direction this board has taken. I resign effective immediately." With public attention mounting, Kara's follow-up piece aired statewide. This time, it wasn't just about Maya, it was about patterns, how small HOAs, left unchecked, had turned into shadow governments. Kara featured other towns with similar issues, experts on municipal overreach, and a county commissioner, who admitted, on camera, that too many HOA leaders believe paperwork equals power. Maya watched the segment from her living room, Ria and Talia, sitting beside her on the couch. When Kara appeared on screen holding a copy of the anonymous HOA email thread, Maya noticed something new. A line at the bottom of the page she'd missed before. Proximity-based enforcement, suggested by DV, override resistance with technical ambiguity. DV, Dolores Vance. The next day, Maya stepped outside, and saw something she hadn't expected. Her neighbors were reclaiming color. Benji's once faded gate had been repainted a bright ocean blue. Jada and Eric installed a bright yellow wind chime by their porch. Even Mrs. Laney had swapped her gray shutters for soft green. No one asked permission, no one waited for approval, they just did it. That weekend, the newly formed Greenwood Bluff Homeowners Transparency Group held its first open-air gathering in the neighborhood park. No board members attended, but 72 residents did. Maya stood quietly in the back, as people shared their stories. Some spoke into the mic, others just listened. There were folding chairs, lemonade, and a printed banner hanging between 2 oaks. No more fear, no more silence. Halfway through the event, a woman approached Maya. She wore a hoodie and sunglasses, speaking so softly Maya almost missed it. "I was the one who sent those documents," she said. "The internal memos." Maya turned to her. "You were on the board." The woman nodded. "I thought I could help from inside. But it got too toxic." Maya took her hand. "You helped more than you know." The final blow came Monday morning. The county ethics board published a notice, stating that Dolores Vance had been found in violation of procedural boundaries. Her term as HOA president was terminated effective immediately. She was barred from holding any governance role for 5 years pending further review. A replacement interim board was announced. One name stood out, Benji Kim, president acting. Maya knocked on his door that afternoon. He opened it with a smile, and 2 mugs of hot tea. "I didn't ask for this," he said, "but someone had to step in." "I think you're the right someone." He chuckled. "Well, I already bought a gavel, figured I'd use it once." They sat on his porch, and watched the wind ripple across yards that now looked different, less like matching boxes and more like real homes. For the first time in weeks, Maya felt something she hadn't dared let in. Relief. Not just for herself, but for everyone. The damage was being repaired. Not just her door, but everything Dolores had tried to control. And it was happening quietly, collectively, yard by yard. The door was finally fixed on a quiet Thursday morning. Ria arrived early, tool belt over her shoulder, new oak frame balanced on her truck bed. She worked methodically, measuring, cutting, smoothing the edges of the new door, like it was part of a story she already knew the ending to. Maya stood nearby, holding a coffee, and watching the process with quiet satisfaction. This time, it didn't feel like a repair, it felt like restoration. When the final hinge clicked into place, Ria gave the door a small push. It swung open, silently, smooth, straight. Then it closed. Gently, no crack, no creak, just peace. "You're all set," Ria said, brushing sawdust from her palms. Maya ran her hand along the polished edge. "It's beautiful." Ria smiled. It was never about the door though, was it? Maya shook her head. Not even close. Later that day, she sat on her porch. The same bench her uncle had built, the same mint and lavender planters at her feet, and thought about everything that had changed. The street looked different now. Not because of color or decorations, but because people stood taller when they stepped outside. They waved without checking who might see. They added chairs to front lawns, swings to porches, and painted shutters that hadn't seen new color in 20 years. And no one asked permission. Talia joined her after school, dropping her backpack with a sigh, and stealing a sip of Maya's iced tea. You know, she said, my teacher asked if we could use the footage for a case study in civic engagement. Maya raised an eyebrow. The door slam. The whole thing. She called it a masterclass in how ordinary people reclaim control. Maya smiled. It was just a cracked door. Talia grinned. That cracked door got statewide news attention, ended a presidency, and started a movement. A few minutes later, a familiar figure approached the porch, Mrs. Laney, carrying a plastic container and a small envelope. She offered both with a warm smile. Apple cobbler, she said. And this? Maya opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. Dear Maya, you reminded us that strength doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes, it looks like quiet refusal. Like a bench that stays put. Like shutters painted green. Like a door that no longer creaks. Thank you for helping this street feel like home again. Maya blinked back a tear. You didn't have to. We all wanted to. Mrs. Laney said, patting her hand. That's what community really is. Not rules. Not fences. Just care. The following weekend, the neighborhood gathered again. This time not in protest, but in celebration. Benji brought a speaker, and played old jazz records. Eric grilled burgers. Jada passed out lemonade. Talia painted faces for the kids. Maya didn't make a speech. She didn't need to. Her house stood behind her, quiet, whole and proud. No signs, no notices, just life. As the sun dipped behind the trees, Kara appeared with her camera slung low, recording short interviews for her final segment. She approached Maya with a knowing smile. Anything you'd like to say on the record? Maya looked around at the gathering, the music, the food, the kids. Then she looked back at Kara. Sometimes, people knock on your door hoping you'll fold. Other times, they slam it shut so hard, they end up cracking the entire system. Kara smiled wide. That's the quote right there. That night, after the last chair was folded, and the porch lights glowed low, Maya sat with Talia and Benji, listening to the quiet hum of cicadas. There was no more fear, no more whispers, no more looking over shoulders. There was just the slow return of normal. And that, Maya realized, was the most powerful ending of all, because this wasn't just a story about a fight, it was a story about keeping what was already yours, and never letting anyone tell you otherwise again.